Welcome, fellow travelers, into the abyss, to Don't Look Back. Tonight, we peel back the veil on a chilling tale, one whispered in the darkest corners of the internet. A story that blurs the line between scientific ambition and cosmic horror. Prepare yourselves, for what you are about to hear will challenge your very understanding of sleep, sanity, and the things that lurk just beyond our perception. You've heard the stories, dismissed them as mere fiction, a campfire tale to send shivers down your spine. But in the brutal winter of 1947, deep within the iron grip of the Soviet Union, a clandestine experiment was born. Driven by Cold War paranoia and a relentless pursuit of the ultimate weapon, they sought to eliminate the most fundamental human need: sleep. Their goal was to create the perfect soldier, an unyielding worker, a being free from the weakness of rest. What they created, however, was not science. It was a portal to something else entirely, something ancient and malevolent, something that had always been inside us, waiting for the opportunity to be unleashed. 5 political prisoners, deemed expendable, were chosen for this unholy endeavor. They were locked away in a sealed, soundproof chamber, a tomb of sensory deprivation. There was no light, no clocks, no external stimuli to mark the passage of time. Only a constant, insidious stream of an experimental gas, designed to keep them perpetually awake, flowed into their suffocating prison. The gas, a potent stimulant, promised endless vigilance. It promised a new era of human endurance. But it delivered only a slow, agonizing descent into a nightmare far more profound than any dream. For the first few days, the subjects were calm, even optimistic. They conversed, shared stories, clinging to the last vestiges of their humanity. But by day 3, the subtle shifts began. They started to whisper, not to the scientists observing them through reinforced glass, but to the cold, unfeeling walls of their confinement. Their voices were low, guttural, as if sharing secrets with an unseen confidant. The scientists, initially intrigued, soon grew uneasy. What could they be whispering about in such a desolate space? What unseen presence were they acknowledging? By day 5, the whispers escalated into something far more disturbing. Their minds began to unravel, piece by agonizing piece. They started laughing, a hollow, mirthless sound that echoed in the sterile chamber, at absolutely nothing. Then, without warning, the laughter would contort into guttural sobs, only to snap back to manic cackles moments later. They began tearing pages from their own minds, ripping away memories, identities, the very fabric of who they were. The scientists watched, horrified, as the subjects' grip on reality slipped away, replaced by a terrifying, unpredictable madness. They stopped eating, their bodies fueled only by the relentless stimulant and the growing terror within. In a desperate, primal act of defiance, they smeared feces across the reinforced glass, blocking the cameras, plunging their world into absolute darkness. But their voices, now a cacophony of disjointed babble and chilling whispers, never stopped. The screaming began on day 7. It was not the scream of pain, but of pure, unadulterated terror, a sound that clawed at the sanity of the observers. And once it started, it never truly ended. It became a constant, horrifying symphony of despair. One man, driven by an incomprehensible urge, tore open his own chest with his bare fingers. He ripped through flesh and muscle, exposing his beating heart. He didn't scream. Instead, he whispered to it, a tender, horrifying lullaby, as if it were a long-lost friend. The others watched, their eyes wide and unblinking, their faces contorted in a silent, grotesque fascination. The chamber became a canvas of blood and madness, a testament to the horrors unleashed by the gas. The scientists, their faces pale with dread, debated intervention, but the fear of what they might unleash held them paralyzed. By day 9, an unnatural silence descended upon the chamber. The screaming stopped. The whispers ceased. No movement, no sound, just the chilling, pervasive presence of blood everywhere. The scientists, their hearts pounding, feared the worst. Had they finally succumbed? But they weren't sleeping. They weren't resting. They were listening. Listening to something the scientists couldn't hear, something ancient and vast, something that had finally found its way into their minds. One subject stood in the corner, perfectly still, staring into the void. A grotesque smile stretched across his face, his cheeks torn open, revealing raw muscle and bone. His eyes, peeled wide, were unnervingly alert, reflecting a terrifying alien intelligence. He began to murmur, a low, guttural sound that resonated with an unholy truth. He's here now, inside all of us. The scientists, driven by a morbid curiosity and a desperate need for answers, made the gravest mistake of their lives. They opened the chamber, and they should have never, ever done that. What was left inside was no longer human. Their bodies were grotesque parodies of their former selves. Ribs exposed, muscles pulsing beneath taut skin, teeth grinding constantly, a horrifying symphony of bone on bone. But their eyes were awake. More awake than anything had the right to be, burning with an unnatural, predatory light. They lunged at the scientists, not with aggression, but with a desperate, horrifying plea. They clawed at the walls, their voices no longer human, screaming, "Don't let us sleep! He comes when we sleep." They begged for the gas, for the void, for anything to keep the entity at bay. Medical teams, armed with sedatives, tried to subdue them. But the subjects resisted with inhuman strength, their bodies impervious to pain, devoid of fear. There was only hunger, a ravenous, insatiable hunger for the gas, for the unblinking void it provided. They were no longer men. They were vessels, conduits for something unspeakable. One of the lead scientists, his voice trembling, managed to ask a subject, "What are you?" The creature smiled, its lips torn, its voice a guttural rasp that resonated deep within the observer's soul. "We are what you bury when you blink," it hissed. "We are what you suppress every night. We are your reflection after the mirror cracks." They killed all but one. The last subject, deemed too valuable, too terrifyingly unique, was kept alive for further study. But at night, he would whisper, not to the terrified staff, but to something beneath the floor, something that answered in the chilling silence. He stopped responding to human speech, yet began answering questions before they were even asked, his eyes fixed on an unseen point. Then, one day, he stopped blinking, forever. And when his heart was removed during an autopsy, a final grotesque act of scientific desperation, he was still smiling. The facility was immediately sealed, every shred of data supposedly destroyed. But one tape survived, a single horrifying recording they never wanted the world to hear. They say if you listen to it alone at night, in the suffocating silence, you won't sleep again. Because what they found wasn't just the end of rest. It was the beginning of something ancient, something that has always been there, lurking in the shadows of our consciousness. You're not afraid of the dark. You're afraid of what wakes up inside you when the lights go out. If this descent into the unblinking void chilled you to your core, hit that subscribe button. Join the Don't Look Back community for more true horror, unsettling mysteries, and the darkest corners of human history and beyond. Don't forget to ring that notification bell so you never miss our next terrifying transmission. And remember, some doors, once opened, can never truly be closed.